Hello, and welcome to Reality TV News Update, where you'll find the most recent news, entertaining moments, and exclusive behind-the-scenes content. Savannah Louie was counting down the days until Survivor's Season 49 finale. On Wednesday, December 17, she not only said that she had won the reality competition show and the $1 million prize, but she also said that she would be back for the 50th season with her friend Rizzo Velovich. The 32-year-old news anchor turned marketing strategist swayed over the jury in a 5-2-1 vote against runner-ups Sophie Bilardi and Sage Aarons-Nichols. The finale was the first all-women Final Three since the Season 29 San Juan del Sur finale, which aired over a decade ago in 2014. She fought her way to the top using her competitive instincts, core allies, and 4 immunity challenge victories, despite being at the bottom of the merge alongside Velovich and Bilardi. Running on 2 hours of sleep and loads of caffeine, the California native spoke to USA Today about her underdog story in Season 49 and shared how she found out she was cast for Survivor 50. This interview has been edited and condensed for length and clarity. You played such a great, unique game that we don't really see from many winners. You were very authentic in yourself, while also lying because it's still Survivor. Could you talk about finding that balance between being your true self and playing the game? I grew up watching the show, and when I was watching the old-school Survivor, I always appreciated how authentic some of these people were when they would put themselves on camera. I also promised myself that I'm going to give it all when I finally got the chance to participate in the show. People are going to know me 100%, and they might love me, they might really hate me, but either way, I want them to be fully equipped with everything that I am and know me through all of this. And so that was my mindset going into the show. Some of my strengths can come across as really polarizing and maybe intimidating at times and maybe rub people the wrong way. Still, I think that I was able to find a way to lean into those strengths, to not win every jury vote, of course, but basically to get enough jury votes to ultimately win at the end. I'm thinking about you being perceived as a villain on the show. You mentioned your admiration for Russell Hantz and liking Johnny Fairplay. Many of the most well-known characters are villains, so whether it's a compliment or an insult, do you agree that you are a Survivor villain? I would say I'm a villain light. You watch some of the old seasons of Survivor, and you see people who are truly diabolical. I look at my game, and I'm like, okay, I played pretty hard. I did rub people the wrong way. I suppose that's the quality of a villain. I played aggressively, and I was a bold player, too. If you want to call me a villain, put me alongside people like Parvati, Shallow, Tony, Vlachos, Boston Rob, Mariano, Johnny Fairplay, and Sandra Diaz-Twine, all people who have been called villains before. Yes, I'm happy to take that title and use it. That is a huge compliment to me. You praised winners like Kim Spradlin and Dee Valladares, who played from the top and controlled every vote before the show. You, Rizzo, and Sophie played from the bottom at one point and still had control of all the votes. I think my game is so interesting because for the first half, I was playing from the top. I was in a great position where I had really nothing to worry about, and it kind of was a dominant game similar to Kim and Dee's until the merge, and I found myself at the very bottom. I got punched in the face at a merge, so to speak, and I had to readjust my strategy. And at that point, there was no way I was going to play like Kim or Dee because they hadn't really been in that position. And so I'm glad that I was able to forge my own way forward with 2 amazing allies. I'm grateful that it happened the way that it did, because playing from the top and the bottom are 2 very different experiences, and I think it's the hallmark of a good player if you can get through both. We've got to talk about the Tres Leches alliance. Let's start with Sophie. I know that before you even knew her name, you already gravitated towards her. What was that connection, and how did that play in the game? This sounds so silly, but she really did remind me of a friend from back home. We're both short, have similar vibes, and similar fashion choices. She literally was wearing these platform sneakers, and I was like, oh, those are so cute. Like, that's something I would wear. When we connected on the Hina Beach, that connection just grew. We both loved the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. We both liked to talk about how badly we needed to get a massage ASAP. There is something to be said for having a real-life connection with a player in the game that can really help you get through tough times. Rizzo, on the other hand, was this pairing no one expected. You didn't really have similar personalities. What was it about Rizzo that you gravitated to?
Oh my gosh, his energy is just infectious. I also said that Sophie reminded me of a friend from back home, who was Rizzo's family. For me, I have a little brother. He's the same age as Rizzo. We have similar mannerisms. They're both goofy and silly and full of life, and they just bring such positive, light energy to any group that they're with. Rizzo, on the other hand, was like a brother to me out there, and I wish you were able to see a little bit more of our connection, because it does look like it was purely strategic at times. He's a great strategist. I will align with him any day of the week, but for me, it was so much more than that. If Rizzo got to make it to the final three, how do you feel like you would have fared? Are you nervous about how that would have turned out? It's so hard to say because I don't know if I would have won, and that's not to knock my game or anything like that, but all of us played really wonderful games. I think that some of the votes that Rizzo may have gotten were votes that I got at the end there. I also believe that people clearly did not love me, and I am curious about how that would have turned out for Rizzo as well. Part of me thinks maybe Sophie might have actually been able to pull out a win there. The show's most significant moment came when Christina asked you to name each jury member's family. It was very uncomfortable, but also felt very much like old-school Survivor. Obviously, there are no big regrets because it worked out, but at the moment, did you have any regrets about not getting to know the family members more? I appreciate Christina's question. She's totally valid to ask that. That's the beautiful thing about being on the jury. You can ask whatever you want. But at that point, dude, I could not remember. And even with Rizzo, for example, I had talked to him for 25 days. We've talked about his girlfriend, Liz, like a million times. And even when I was going to him, I almost forgot his girlfriend's name. I'm bad with names, but get me out there when I'm starving and not sleeping, and I'm sorry, there's no chance. A lot of my conversations with people weren't necessarily about remembering a family member's name. It was more about what drives you. What are you passionate about in your life? Why are you the way that you are today? And I apologize for not remembering a family member's name, but I don't know if people could remember my family member's name, and I would still think that we connected on a level. Another disappointing moment was not winning that final challenge and beating that record for most immunity challenge wins by a woman. Can you talk about that defeat, and do you feel like you could have done it? I'm maybe someone who's always going to be a little optimistic. I think that not winning, even though it would have been so incredible, was probably a good thing for my game. I think it was important for me to show at the very end that everybody, including my closest ally, wanted me out of the game. When Sophie sent me to fire, it's clear that I wasn't happy about it at the time, but in the end, I think it almost helped me. Not because I necessarily won the fire-making challenge, but it just showed and illustrated that nobody wanted me here, and I was able to dodge all of these bullets and still make it to the very end and truly encapsulate the surviving part of Survivor. I didn't even think about that, because obviously you played a social strategic game, and you didn't have immunity all the time, but a lot of the time you did, so it's important to show people actually did want you out. Exactly. I didn't want to just be a challenge threat, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to show a little bit more than that. Lastly, we need to talk about Survivor 50. It's now revealed that you and Rizzo are on it. A lot of people suspected that was the case, but you couldn't confirm it. When did you realize you're going to be on Survivor 50? It was literally the day after the final tribal council, a couple of hours before we boarded the plane to the US. I was called into a room, I see Jeff on a computer, and I thought he was going to congratulate me or something like that on the win, and then he starts going into 50, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like he's playing a trick on me. There's no way this is real. But it was so incredible, and I felt just so humbled to be even asked and considered for it. I watched the show growing up, and you didn't know at that time who all was going to be on 50, but you hear rumblings and rumors about people who are possibly going to be on the season. To even be in the same sentence, or let alone the same beach as some of these icons, it's crazy and mind-blowing and just so freaking
Survivor 49, Savannah Louie's torch was snuffed out for the final time, not because she had been voted out, but rather because she had won. Savannah emerged as a polarizing champion in a season marked by sharp strategic turns, public blindsides, and a fan base that was quick to label heroes and villains. She was hailed by some as a skilled tactician who was more familiar with the modern game than anyone else on the island. She was branded a villain by others who provided evidence in the form of ruthless votes and icy cold confessions. Savannah, for her part, embraces the complexity.
I think villain has become shorthand for woman who owns her decisions, Savannah says now, reflecting on her win. I never intended to be mean. I wanted to win. If that makes people uncomfortable, I'm okay with it. From the moment Savannah hit the beach, she played with clarity. She listened more than she spoke, cultivated relationships quietly, and struck when the timing was right. Her most controversial move, turning on a close ally at the merge, sparked outrage online and ignited the villain narrative that followed her to the finale. However, Savannah maintains that the move was required. In that moment, it was either my game or theirs, she explains. I selected mine. Survivor is a strategy game with an emotional component, not a morality game. Empathy doesn't mean you can't cut someone when you have to. That blend of empathy and edge defined Savannah's season. In confessionals, she articulated her plans with surgical precision. At camp, she was warm, even comforting. The contrast unsettled players who underestimated her and viewers who prefer cleaner lines between good and bad. By final tribal council, Savannah leaned into that duality, owning every vote and explaining how each decision advanced her path to the end. I knew I had to control the narrative, she says. If I tried to apologize my way through final tribal, I would lose. Instead, I told them the truth. I respected them enough to play hard. In a decisive vote, the jury awarded Savannah the prize for her honesty. Nonetheless, the villain moniker persisted, amplified by interviews following the season and social media. Savannah says she expected the backlash, but was surprised by its intensity. I've had to learn to let it roll off, she admits. People forget these are edited episodes. They see a few hours of footage from 26 days and think they know you. Even in the messy parts, I'm proud of how I played. Savannah has become a frequent guest on podcasts and panels in the months since her victory, where she has elaborated on her game philosophy. She argues that modern Survivor rewards adaptability over loyalty and decisiveness over likability, and that women who play that way are still judged more harshly. When a guy makes a big blindside, he's a legend. When a woman does it, she's a villain. I hope that my victory will at least move that needle. That brings us to the question on every fan's mind. Would Savannah Louie return for Survivor 50? There have already been a lot of rumors about the historic season, which is said to have a cast of players from different eras returning. Savannah's name appears on nearly every shortlist, and for good reason. As a recent winner with a bold reputation, she represents the new era's emphasis on aggressive gameplay. Savannah is open about the phone call inquiring about her interest. She describes it as surreal. I clearly recall thinking, I just won. Do I really want to do this again? The skepticism is real. Returning players face heightened expectations, limited room to maneuver, and a target that never quite disappears. For a winner labeled a villain, the challenge would be even steeper. If I go back, I'm not sneaking anywhere, Savannah laughs. From day one, everyone would be watching me. Still, the idea of Survivor 50 holds a powerful pull. Savannah grew up watching the show's early seasons, idolizing players who took risks and lived with the consequences. It's tempting to share a beach with legends and test her evolved game against theirs. She says, I think I'd play differently, smarter, not softer. The first time, I proved I could make the hard moves. Timing, patience, and maybe letting someone else take the heat would be key the second time around. Additionally, she is more aware of the personal costs. Savannah discusses openly the impacts of the show's aftermath, including the scrutiny, sudden visibility, and pressure to respond to all viewpoints. Returning would mean stepping back into that storm. She says, you have to be in the right headspace. I won't do it just for the sake of it. It must appear to be the right chapter. Savannah's impact on Survivor 49 cannot be denied, whether she accepts an invitation or not. She challenged presumptions about how audiences ought to reward winners and how winners ought to act. She redefined her so-called villainy by accepting it as a strategic identity rather than a moral failing. Villains aren't the bad guys. They're the ones willing to make choices others won't. If Survivor taught me anything, it's that you can be kind, flawed, ambitious, and ruthless all at once.
As Survivor approaches its 50th season, that lesson feels especially relevant. The game has evolved, the players have evolved, and so has the definition of what it means to win. Savannah Louie didn't just claim the title of sole survivor, she forced a conversation about power, perception, and the courage to stand by your moves. One thing is certain, Savannah won't ask for forgiveness if she returns. She'll be playing to win again.